everybody. Welcome to Philly Legends Podcast. I'm Joe Colari. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the link below. Tell a friend. And listen, if you don't have any friends, tell an enemy. We just need some people to watch.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Today's guest, if you were driving around from work in the 80s or the 90s and you were listening to the number one station in Philadelphia, then you were listening to this cat, JoJo Davis. What's up, JoJo?
Man, we still here. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah.
Well, long before I worked at the station, I was a big fan. So to me, it's a thrill having you on.
Thank you.
And here's the thing that I want to get into before we get into your career in the radio.
Right.
Because education.
Yeah.
You're a big guy with education. So tell them the steps that led up to getting to Power 99.
Okay. Thank you for asking me. But obviously, graduating high school. And then I went off to Illinois State University Normal. And I was in the program for the School of Communication at Illinois State. I would say to you in its infancy, but
Now you worked at the station there as well?
Yeah. Well, not the campus station.
Okay.
I worked for the public radio station.
Okay.
WGLT 89.1 FM. And it was the one of the public radio stations for that area of Central Illinois, which covered Bloomington Normal, and then also Peoria, even though Peoria had their station there,
right.
Bradley University, which is our rival. But I started there in 1979 because they were looking for a jazz announcer. And a friend of mine told me about the posting. This is back when they would hang up the job application in the hall or something. And so the guy was like, Joe, you should be all over this or whatever, right? And so I went up and applied, and program director is Peter Dominowski, who's a big, he's now a big legend, if you will,
right,
in public
like
radio.
Yourself.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so, thank you again. So, I told Peter, I was Miles Davis's younger half brother, and I knew jazz and blah blah blah. And so what he did, I filled out an application, and then he gave me an artist test.
Really?
Mostly of artists that weren't fusion jazz. This was when fusion jazz rock, as it was called, was still new and, burning new ground. And my thing was that, not that the traditional forms were not important, but, I was born in 1959. So this was the cutting edge music. Right. And so, I passed it. And the first night that I went on the air, I had some training, but the first real night I was on the air, I brought my record collection with me. I brought a crate of records, so that's how I got started. It was February 23rd, 1979. Wow. And then what happened was my program, which was called More Jazz, and let me add that I was getting paid. I never worked in radio for free. But
good for you.
Yeah. Never did college radio. But um, uh, eventually, the program became very popular. That it showed up in the Central Illinois Arbitron ratings.
Right. I was going to
And
say
that
it's
was the
going to be
first
Arbitron.
time. Yeah, it was the first time a public radio station,
That's very rare.
showed up, right?
Yep.
And so that's when we knew that it was, popular. Obviously, beyond just McLean County, that's where Illinois State is located,
Right.
and and it showed up in the ratings books over in Peoria. So, you know, uh, the newspapers came out to interview me and everything. And, uh, you know, uh, then I also started doing news and classical, uh, a little bit classical.
Hmm.
I mean, my thing, they hired me for jazz, but I would sub for classical because I grew up studying classical. I used to take piano lessons.
Hmm.
So I knew about, Bach, Schubert, Franz Liszt,
You had
uh,
that gene.
Joseph Haydn. Yeah,
You have that gene
yeah,
and proof of it with your brother.
yeah. So it was a very great experience because it opened up my mind to not only help me graduate, matriculate and get my it learning empowered me as a broadcaster and vice versa. The broadcasting empowered learning because, uh, this is back when public radio was called educational radio.
Hmm.
And so, in my mind, having that experience, I looked at the world and said I could do anything, meaning you can conjure up in your mind anything.
Yep.
And I used to get interviews with a lot of musicians who were uh, uh, former sidemen of Miles or wanted to play with Miles or,
Yeah.
was studioing with Miles. This was during the period when Miles didn't play for 5 years.
Right.
But I still see my mother lived in New York and I was at Illinois State. She lived with her sister, my late aunt.
Right.
And so I would come to New York, go to the jazz clubs, get interviews with these people and
It's
edit
great.
them and bring them back and edit them and play them for my audience. So I was the only guy that would have interviews with, Herbie Hancock, the
Right.
Brecker brothers, Bob Burke, all of the hot uh, people at the time. Uh, I'd seek them out in New York even the Sidemen.
Right.
So that helped. And some of them got to the National Public Radio head office, and I would get credit for some of the audio that they would use for the National Public Radio items. You
Right.
know, so that started my career, but it also expanded my intellectual horizon, and I understood then, even though music is a popular form of communication, in particular R&B, and education to me was important because you still, in my opinion, had a responsibility to your audience. If your personality, you could talk all the hip talk and be hip,
Sure.
but you still have, because you're touching people, you have a responsibility to also educate and influence them.
Yep.
And so that was my theory. Now, with that being my theory, uh, in popular radio, let's just say I oftentimes encountered resistance about that which really was just immaturity and jealousy as I look back, because you can't tell me to this day how that hurts your audience. You know, if you know, you still hit, but if you're out with people or you have that reputation, you have a dignified reputation, that's good for your audience. It's good for your product at the radio station, and it's good for humanity.
Yep.
It's just,
Absolutely.
you know,
Yeah.
so that was how I got started. And after that, I went into pop radio with Magic 108 in St. Louis, my hometown R&B station. And then I went up to New Hampshire to work in,
Now, did you
I had
grow
to,
up in St. Louis?
yeah, East St. Louis. Yeah,
Okay.
I grew up in East St. Louis. Born in Millstadt, Illinois.
Right.
Millstadt, Illinois at the time was a 100% German American immigrant enclave, 25 miles southeast of St. Louis, Missouri,
Right.
on the Illinois side. And I was born there in
You
1959.
guys had a big farm there.
Yeah, on a 160-acre farm. My father was the late Dr. Miles Dewey Davis. My mother was Josephine Haynes Davis, a trailblazer in education. And so, uh, uh, you know, these things influenced uh, my growth and development. And uh, so after I went back to St. Louis to work at Magic, I went up to New Hampshire to do top 40 radio. And I got an afternoon drive. Now, why does a guy like me go to New Hampshire in 1982? Well, my thing was I wanted to prove to the industry that a guy like me could go be on top 40 radio, and with all due respect, in one of the whitest areas of the country,
Yep.
uh, in Franklin, New Hampshire. And so I did that to also cut my chops, to get better in my delivery. And so while I was up there, I used to listen to the station coming out of Boston, Kiss 108 with Sonny Joe White.
I was going to say Sonny Joe White.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at the time, it was this guy at night from 9 to 1, Wyatt on the radio.
Yep.
Yeah. So I used to listen to them.
See, the connection is starting
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to get the connection.
Yeah. Wyatt on the radio, right?
Exactly.
So I would listen to them at night and deliver, if you will, try to deliver the same type of style on my radio station, because that's kind of who we were. We
Right.
were a little bit more pop than Boston, because obviously it's an urban area.
Right.
And I was out in the middle of nowhere, but uh, the style was the same. So when Wyatt on the radio left, Jeff Wyatt, I just knew that I just knew I was going to get that shift. I mean, you're young, you got the sound,
Yep.
right? I sent everything to Sonny Joe White, and he hired JoJo Kincaid. Okay. Now, JoJo Kincaid is like on the Mount Rushmore of jocks for me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Wyatt was good, but JoJo Kincaid is like fire. Okay. So I was mad until I heard JoJo Kincaid. And I was like, oh shit, this guy, he's just, I used to listen to him every night, because that was back when you had all these signals in the day, but then at night when those signals went down, you could get that hot signal out of a big
Yeah.
metropolitan area. So
Mm-hmm.
I would listen to JoJo Kincaid at night from 9 to 1. And so I was still in New Hampshire, and I would send out my resume, and we'll get to Wyatt in a minute, in Philly. Now I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
there. I would send out my resumes, and I would use my mother's address, because my theory was, if jocks, I'm sorry, if program directors saw my resume and with a New York address on it, then they think I'm, some big
Yeah,
guy or, whatever,
I,
big guy, or at least
I get it.
influenced by New York radio, right?
Yeah.
So I sent 2 resumes, one to Jeff Wyatt at Power 99. This was in 1983. And one to Joe Butterball Tamburo
Mm-hmm.
at WDAS, right? Later that year, I heard about this opening in New Orleans, right? So I sent my package down there. Guy calls me, hires me. I'm in New Orleans, right? Out of New
The
England,
life
right?
of a jock.
Right? I'm in New Orleans, and I'm like, I'm in New Orleans, right? I mean, I'm hot, I'm in New Orleans.
Jazz.
Yeah, but this was WYLD, and it was,
Yeah, but that was, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you were
yeah, yeah, the
working, but
vibe,
for
yeah,
you, the
yeah,
vibe, I mean, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah, right. We were doing R&B and hip hop and stuff,
Right.
you know. It was, So my mother calls me one day. She goes, "Yeah, I was just letting you know that some program director called you from Philly." She goes, "I don't know if you want to do it or not. You just got to New Orleans. I don't even know. I don't know if you even want to call him." I was like, "Philadelphia? Are you crazy?" My mother don't know. She
Right.
doesn't.
Market size.
Yeah, she doesn't. She's happy I got a job, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking it's Butterball.
Right.
I said, "So is it Joe Tamburo? Is that the name?" She goes, "Oh, let me get the piece of paper here." She goes, "Somebody, Jeff Wyatt, Y-W-Y." I was like, "Jeff Wyatt, Power 99?" She goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my God, that's the new station that's like Kiss 108 in Boston
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah." She doesn't know. She's like,
Right.
"Yo, whatever." Right. So I called him, and it had to have been in October of '83. And so we talked, whatever. He was like, "Yeah, think about making some changes, whatever. I ain't ready yet, but I'm not ready yet, but stay in touch. Keep sending me tapes. I want to hear you." So I sent him a tape. I must have sent him 2 tapes a week or no, right? So my mother she had a mild heart attack,
Oh.
right? So I had to fly into New York from uh, New Orleans. So I contacted Wyatt, and I was like, "Yo, my mother's sick. I got to go to New York. But I was just letting you know I'm gonna be in the area if you want to meet. Whatever. I'd like to meet you or whatever." He was
Right.
like, "Great timing," because this was November. He was like, "Great timing." He said, "What I'll do, you fly into New York, and I'll pay for you to catch a train to come down to Philly, and we'll pay for your transfer on your plane to get back to New Orleans." Right? I was like, "Bet," right? So he met me at 30th Street,
Yeah.
you know, and I remember telling my mother, I was like, "Yo, I hope this comes through because then I'll be down the highway. I could help take care of you."
Exactly.
Because, I used to take care of her, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "Well, I mean, what are you going to tell them? I mean, I mean, you just got there really." And I'm like, "Yo, don't you worry about that. It's the nature of the business, whatever."
That's right.
Right?
He'll kick you out and not think of
Right.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
At all. Right.
We'll just bust you out.
So I got back, and again, I would send Wyatt the tapes or whatever. And sometime in December, it could have been the beginning of December. That's how quick things went. And he said, "I want to offer you overnights. Uh, you know, uh, and I was like, "Market number 5?" I was like, yeah. And so I arrived January 23rd, uh, 1984.
So you started doing overnights at first.
Yes, I
See, this
started.
is I'm learning. I'm learning now too, Joe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I started off overnights, and I did that for some years, and then I moved up to 7 to midnight when Tony Gray left, Mike Jackson.
Yep, yep. I remember
Okay,
that.
and that's when, with all due respect, the domination really came in.
Yep,
The numbers went through the roof. Whatever people like, I, I had a lot of energy, of course, and uh, so that was the first time. Uh, I got notoriety, if you will,
yeah,
in the Philadelphia Press with
yeah.
the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Then the awards start coming.
Yeah, and so recognition,
Yep.
in the trades. But in 1985, I also figured out that radio is what it is, what it was, whatever. I was like, you know what, I need to get something to back me up, more education, whatever. I started applying to law school in 1985. My grades undergrad sucked, so I kept getting rejected. I got rejected for 6 years. But along those 6 years, I started taking classes to improve my academic record. So I first started at Philadelphia, I'm sorry, at, Community College of Philadelphia. Just took some, they call it continuing education courses. And so I got A's on that, right? Because I was smart. I just at Illinois
Right.
State, too many
Exactly.
women. It was just Illinois State is like known still to this day as the party capital of the schools in Illinois. You know, and so after that, I went over to Chestnut Hill College, even though they were an all women's college. They were co-ed in the evening. So I went over there and took I think sociology and I don't know. It was something else. English, man. I don't know. But I started getting A's over there. And so this professor of sociology, her name was Sarah Ben, Benn. But she was also an attorney and she taught over there, right? And so she knew that eventually I wanted to go to law school, but she knew I told her about my grades, like I'm trying to build this thing back. That's why I'm here. And so one day she came in with this brochure for the School of Social Work at the University of Pennsylvania. And she was like, because I was also having problems with these standardized tests like the GRE and the
Right.
LSAT. That was just killing me, right? She was like, look, you still got to take those standardized tests if you want to go to business school or law school. But you don't have to take a standardized test to get into this program, which is a master's program. And she goes, it is at the University of Pennsylvania. I was like, I don't care if it's basket weaving. Okay. If I can get a master's degree from Penn, I'm in.
Exactly.
Okay. So I started over there seeing the admissions director and so forth, who just happened to be a sorority sister of my mother.
Wow.
Okay. They didn't know each other, but they're in the same sorority. But
Exactly.
she did know my mother's sorority sister, who was her graduate school roommate when she was getting her master's at Columbia. So she did know her. So I would go over there all the time, bringing her letters and all this type of stuff, what I was doing at the station in the community, because I was community relations director. I'm like, yo, boom, they let me in. And,
That's
some of
awesome.
our friends, Craig Davis, in fact, he,
Yep.
to this day, he goes, I don't know how you did that. I don't know how the hell your ass was in Penn, period. Okay. And so I got my master's. It was a 3-year part-time program. It took me 4 years, but whatever.
All right.
Because I had to take care of my mom. I still had to go.
Right.
So
Plus, you were working.
so yeah, and I'm working. Right now, while all that's going on, I'm still applying to law school. Meaning, I gotta get this LSAT score up. Well, I started in '85. Okay, and over the next 6 years, the scores were first year was 16, the next year was 17, the next year was 19, the next year was 21, the next year was 24, but then the next year it jumped all the way up to 33, and they wanted at least a 30. No, I'm sorry, it jumped up to 31. They wanted at least a 33, but I had been bugging them at Rutgers all those years, and the admissions director, this guy named James Muller, who I hold with high regard. That last year, I said, meaning the last time I applied, I said, Mr. Muller, do you need anything else from me? I mean, he goes, Joe, no, don't give me anything else. He opens up his drawer. I swear to you, Joe, he pulls out a stack of stuff I sent him for 6 years, this thick. He
Yeah.
goes, I've saved everything. He said, you've shown how bad you want this and you've grown with your LSAT score. He goes, I can't guarantee anything. He can't guarantee anything. He said, but, we're going to see what happens at today's meeting. And you're right. I'm still in the air, still winning,
Yep.
still, I'm motivated. See, I'm just motivated, to try to be the best, and so forth. And so the day that they were going to have the meeting on my application, I I got a call from he was one of the deans. He was over the law school. Uh, oh God, Bob. Oh God, he happened to be a Florida lawyer. He had stopped practicing, but he used to be a Florida lawyer. Bob, damn, I can't remember his last name. But at any rate, he called me, and for some reason, they couldn't find the pen transcripts.
Hmm.
I was like, what do you mean you can't find the pen transcripts? He was like, well, look, we need them. They're not here. I know you get, we don't know what happened. So I called up my girl, who's the receptionist at the graduate school of Penn. And her name was Nicole. I know. I was like, Nicole, look, I need these transcripts. I need them stamped. I'm not going to be parking in no parking lot. I got to get them there before 11. Okay, I must have called her about 8:45, right? In the morning, right? She's like, I got you. I said, I just need to park out in front of the graduate school. Can you tell the police, don't bother my car. Don't ticket me. Don't tow me. I'm just coming in to get that and coming back out. She goes, I got you, right? I go out of the house, get on the Schuylkill, jammed, stopped, and it's raining cats and dogs. Okay,
Oh man.
right? So I get to Penn at 10:25. Now again, I must have left at 8:45. That's how long
Right.
it took.
Yeah.
Okay, get to Penn 10:25. Get in my car. Get to Penn. I'm sorry. Get to Rutgers at 10:55. Right. So I knock on the door. It takes a while. Knock on the door, and some kid, one of the student because some of the admissions people are students,
Right.
maybe like one or two or something like that. He opens up the door. He's like, "Can I help you?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm here to see Mr. Mueller, the admissions director." He closes the door. Mueller looks at me and he's like, "I'll be damned. I'm drenched." And I pull out them transcripts. They dry as a bone, Joe. Okay. And he looks at me like, "Damn, you are just incredible."
Yeah. Well,
Because they thought, I was gonna be late or what. I was like, "Man, look, I'm a broadcaster, dog. We're not late." Okay.
right.
And so he looks at me and he said, this was May 1st, 1991. And he looks at me and he says, "I'll tell you what, give me a call right before what time you go on the air." I said 2 o'clock, but I got to be there at 1. He said, "Give me a call before you go on the air. We should have a decision for you." I was like, okay. So I get to the radio station. I probably got there at 12:45. And so I'm in the lunchroom, the lunchroom down the hall
Yeah.
on 440,
Yep.
down the lane. And in the lunchroom was this girl. Do you remember? I shouldn't say girl, but we were young. April Washington.
April.
She was
Yeah.
the CBS. I'm sorry, not CBS. Capitol Records rep,
I do.
brown skinned lady
Yep.
from
Yep.
Baltimore, right?
I do remember her.
She's in there, right? So I sit down. We talking. So I tell her what's going on. She's like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "They're gonna make the decision to take." And Joe, she goes, "Give me your hand. We gonna pray on this. I swear to God." And she prayed in that lunchroom like she was grandmama or somebody. Okay,
That's
it wasn't
awesome.
loud or nothing like that.
Yep.
Just dignified, just a prayer.
Yep.
And so I called, waited to 1, waited to I wanted it to be 5 after 1, right? It's 5 after 1 when the phone call. I talked to the lady, the his assistant. Her name was Debbie, and so I was like, "Yes, ma'am, Joseph Davis. I'm calling from it." She goes, "JoJo." She goes, "No problem. He's been waiting on your call. I'll transfer you now." I'm like, He goes, "JoJo." I was like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Welcome to the family, dude."
But that was 6 years, you said?
6, 2 times a year from 85 to 91. Now, here was the deal, even with that, right? Because I hadn't graduated from Penn. They were like, "This is conditioned on you getting your master's. So we're accepting you this year, but you can't start until 92. I was like, "You ain't said nothing but a word." I was like, I was like, "Y'all don't understand what kind of fire you done put up on." Dude,
This is why
that,
I brought up the education thing,
yes,
because I know how much and how important it is to you.
yes.
And there's a reason for that,
Yeah, yeah. Well, the parents and
Parents, big time.
yeah, man. You know, and I'm very thankful for that experience, and I'm thankful for them. And
Yeah.
you know, uh, they they uh,
I
they
you
set
know
the groundwork. They set the groundwork.
I made some notes when
Yeah,
I'm looking at some
yeah,
of your history,
yeah,
and 4 things I wrote down. This
yeah,
is good that you told the story,
yeah.
and these are the things that I think that really reflect your parenting. 1, work ethic. 2, education. 3, the way you honor your parents through the years that I've known you,
Yeah,
which the way you honor them is about love and respect.
try.
That's it. And I always try to come up with some kind of a summary when I'm talking to people and trying to figure out how to do an interview. And they were the 4 things, bullet points that I came up with: work ethic, education, the way you honor your parents, means they taught you love and respect. That's it.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate that because, you know, and they were older, when I was born. My
Right.
father was 61 and my mother was 43.
Right. Yep.
So, you know,
My parents were older too when I was
yeah,
born,
yeah, you
so I
know,
get it.
yeah.
Um,
And, I'm thankful, you know, and
they
I
were
just,
they were both they were both very very educated people.
yeah.
I mean,
And, they were in their profession thoroughly.
exactly.
Yeah. And so, Joe, it's not like I think I'm better than nobody, nothing like that. All I've ever tried to do is not only honor them, but as a public figure, because that's what you are when you're on the air.
Right.
Is just set an example, just a dignified example.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I ain't perfect, I ain't pious, but
None of us are.
yeah, and I never want to embarrass it, and I damn for sure didn't want to embarrass the radio station in any way.
Right.
I mean, because it represent, and eventually I went over to DAS once the thing
Right.
ended
I
at Power
remember.
99, and that was cool.
And then
Uh,
even having success in other states after
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
there's a theme, and I think it all starts back from the four things that I said. You know, it didn't matter what you were going to do. It didn't matter where you were going. The conclusion is success. It didn't matter.
well, I just try to, you know, success and stay out of trouble. you know, uh,
But from the broadcasting, then you go on and become a lawyer.
yeah, and the thing is, when I was at DAS, right, I was doing social work
Right.
on the air on the weekends and in law school at night. Okay. Uh, in DAS, when I was at DAS, you remember when Checkers first came to the Philadelphia area?
Yeah.
Checkers, that
Yep.
sandwich. And there
Yep.
was another place called Doc's, right?
I remember that, but
All
the
in North Philly.
checkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they were both out of Chicago, whatever. Well, the guy
Okay.
that owned uh, both establishments, both franchises, he's a franchisee, uh, was from Chicago. He advertised with DAS, but the guy, Levon Hawkins, right?
Okay.
He was familiar with Miles. He knew I was from Illinois. He knew some of the people I knew in Chicago. While I was at DAS, whenever there was a Levan Hawkins remote, he only wanted me.
Well,
That's how I made money. But the people the next week that I represented at the Dr. Warren E. Smith Mental Health Center, the high functioning mental health clients, I got them jobs. I got 8 of them jobs with Levan Hawkins Industries.
wow.
Okay. And that's what I mean about
The
the
circle.
nexus of the community
Yep.
and what we do as broadcasters to that community. And Levan told me, he was like, JoJo, he goes, your people, even though they, respectfully, they did the sweeping, they did the mopping, it was that type of work.
Sure.
He said, JoJo, he said, your people are the most consistent and the most on time of all the people. The high functioning, mentally
Right.
challenged people.
Sure.
And that really made me feel good. And so after that, I went to Atlanta. I was a guest student down there at Georgia State College of Law. I had to come back to Philadelphia because I used up all my time when I was in Atlanta, meaning all my time at the school. And they didn't grant me an extension for being a visiting student. So I had to come back with no job. I
Wow.
had to finish up. But after that, that's when I went to Dallas to put on KRNB after I graduated law school. And then I came down here because they recruited me from Dallas. And I finally passed the bar down here 4 times. It took me 4 times. And I was on the air here at Star 94.5, which is an R&B station like
Right.
DAS,
Yep.
kind of like,
And
And
you
so,
did the oath on
yeah, on my show. Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah, I got sworn in on my
I
show.
remember watching it on YouTube.
Yeah. That was December 23rd of 2000.
It's incredible.
Judge Reginald Whitehead did it. And people from the community came to the station. I was shocked at how many people showed up. We had talked about it all week,
Right.
but I didn't think people would really be. But and some of these elected officials and everything, I was like, damn, y'all. I just didn't think that they thought of it as that being that important. But it was, and it shows you once again, the influence of what is projected to the audience in radio. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So, that's basically the story. I've been practicing law. I'm a magistrate last year I was a magistrate in 29 counties
Right.
for the Value Adjustment Board. That means it's quasi judicial. When people have issues about their tax exemptions on their property, they file a petition with the county, and the county sets up a hearing between those citizens and the property appraisers, and I'm kind of like the judge.
Right.
And then in one county, uh, I'm the board counsel. I'm the lawyer to the board, and I'm not gonna be a rich billboard lawyer or nothing like that. But I just, I make money just to be comfortable and just keep in touch with brothers like you
Yep.
and just ride this thing on out, man. you
But
know
I mean, there's so many lessons, and I hope some young people get the opportunity to watch this, because if they listen to, and you make it sound easy,
oh
that's the
boy,
thing.
it ain't.
But
It's
you
a
got
lot
to
of pain.
understand, folks, when you're working a regular job and going to school and
At night.
trying to advance yourself. I mean, what JoJo has done is nothing short of miraculous. I mean, it really is. That's a lot of work,
Yeah.
but you achieved what you wanted to achieve, and
Yeah. Thank you.
and again, I think it all goes back to that mindset that you're given when you're young.
Yeah.
And if you get that mindset when you're young, I mean, you have the tenacity then to go on and plow through whatever obstacles get in the way. You plow
Yeah.
them
You
over.
figure it out.
Yep.
I look at it. I tell people I was trained in survival. I keep looking down because I got to watch my little guy here. He's
I know you love your dog.
yeah, yeah, he's a little sneaky sob. But uh, I looked at it as ensuring my comfort and survival.
Right.
As best I could, and like I said, I
Well,
do all right.
you look at your father. He's a dentist and a surgeon,
Yeah,
right?
dental surgeon. Yeah,
Right. And then
1924.
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Then you have your mom,
Yep.
who was an
Educated.
educator.
Yep.
Uh, and this is all done in a time. I mean, we live in a world today that's nuts. This was done in a time where you're not supposed to be able to do that.
Right. I always tell people they achieved so much when Plessy v. Ferguson was the law of the land. Now, what is Plessy v. Ferguson? It was the Supreme Court case of Supreme Court case of 1896, which said the separation of the races can be equal if there are equal accommodations. All right. And that was a Supreme Court case because of
Wow.
a real light skinned, fair skinned black man, Homer Plessy, got busted riding on the Amtrak or whatever the train was back then in Louisiana in the white section. Like he had been doing it and getting away with it because he, quote unquote, was passing. That's what they call it. It's passing. And so he got busted
It's insane.
and his case went up to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And so Plessy v. Ferguson was the law of the land, which was the foundation for what we know as Jim Crow.
Yep.
And it legally, or I would say from a judicial standpoint, lasted until 1954 with Brown v. Board of Education, which overturned Plessy v. Ferguson. Okay. Obviously, we still had
Sure.
things to deal with, but
Yeah.
uh, so the thing about my parents is that even though Plessy v. Ferguson was the law of the land, the way they excelled in Millstadt, Illinois, a 100% German American immigrant enclave, in 1947, buying the land and being the biggest landowners,
Right.
is nothing more less than miraculous.
Wasn't it
And as a
wasn't
side,
it a $250,000 property back
something
then?
like that. Yeah,
I think it was a
something like
$250,000.
yeah,
I'm reading
yeah,
$250,000 property in the 40s in a white area in the country,
yeah.
and your father's running it.
Yes, yes.
I,
And I am the first Black American child to be born in Millstadt, Illinois.
wow.
I
Wow.
was part of that whole Ebony article you have.
Yeah. That Ebony that article
Yeah,
blows me away. I've read it probably 10 times.
yeah. So I tell people all the time, respectfully, my first babysitters were white. And my first, I've got a pic, I couldn't find it, but it's in the back probably. I've got a snapshot of our neighbors with their kids. They're in our living room and they're holding me, playing with me. And one of the little white girls is playing with. You could see her playing in my hair, like she's probably like, "Wow, this is different" or whatever. But but you see their mother that's sitting there, right? My mother took the picture so you don't see her. But the other funny thing is that on the coffee table was RC Cola sodas in the glass RC Cola
Wow.
bottles,
Yeah. Yeah.
which dates the picture,
Yeah.
and so I'm very proud of that,
Yeah.
and I'm very proud of what it meant then, what it still means.
Well, it wasn't like he didn't have like some trials and tribulations, because
Yeah, yeah, oh
when
yeah,
he talks
right,
about
right,
when he talks
right.
about shooting the gun in the
Yeah,
bushes and
yeah,
then
yeah,
finds the pair of shoes,
yeah. So apparently,
I love it.
yeah, yeah. Now I can tell you what I know and what I believe, okay?
Right.
Because after growing this, I'm 66 now, right?
Yeah.
So I've kind of like figured this out. First of all, I figured out. Okay, first of all, my mother is from a place called Richmond, Kentucky, in the Lexington, Lancaster area. Uh, you know, and my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was very fair skinned.
I
You saw
seen the
pictures,
pictures.
yeah, you'd
Yeah.
be like, Joe, who that white dude?
Yep.
You know,
He
you
looks
know,
white. He looks
yeah,
stone white.
yeah, right. So I suspect that Grandpa Haynes brought the guns up because Southern Illinois borders into the South, Kentucky.
Right.
So I believe he brought the guns up because he's probably like, okay, I'm not having my daughter over here with all this without any protection, right? Because
Right.
my mother was very fair skinned.
Yes.
So back then, and my father was very dark skinned. So back then, it's possible if they ride together, night quickly, they thought it was an interracial thing.
Yep.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yes.
All right. Now, apparently, these people were coming up and down our private road. Okay.
I love this story.
And apparently, well, it's told, my father started shooting at him. Now, the real story is that it was my father and mother shooting at him.
Yeah.
But back then, you couldn't have a woman who is the first woman in Black American principal in Madison County, Illinois,
That's right.
in the news shooting at white people with a 12-gauge shotgun on her property. It's okay if her husband does it, but meaning it ain't okay, but it is understandable, right? So they were shooting at him, and the next thing they know, the next morning, they found boots in the hedges, in the shrubberies, I should say.
Somebody ran right out of their shoes.
Right, he ran them right out of the boots, and then by some miracle, everybody became friendly.
Exactly.
Because I believe that my picture with the ladies and the little white girls with me is evidence of everybody becoming friendly with the RC
Exactly.
colors.
And that's the way it should have been.
Yeah. So, and another interesting fact is that my father was into trading these type of hogs that called landrace, Landrace hogs. They are white hogs with particular black dot markings on them. Okay, get over here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
I know
worries.
he was there. I just got to watch him because he wants to go out, but we're good. Come here. Come here. See, he went right by me. He's losing his sight. Yeah, but So, so one of my father's trading partners was the late great Winston Churchill. People go,
Right.
Winston Churchill? That Winston Churchill? Yes.
That Winston, I
That
know.
Winston
I read
Churchill.
that. I made a note of it.
Yeah.
Winston Churchill. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's insane.
One of his trading buddies. And the other one was the late Robert E.B. Fielder. Well, Robert E.B. Fielder was a great, great, great grandson of the Confederate General Robert E. Lee. That was one of his best friends. Okay. And trading buddies.
Right.
Okay. So, it's an interesting history.
Yes.
It's an interesting history.
That has to be told.
Yes, that has to be told.
Yeah.
And I can say on this podcast that me and Joe and myself have talked about Joe and his production company. And tell me your girlfriend's name again.
Patty.
Yes, her. You said say that again.
Patty.
Patty, right?
Yep.
I'm tired. And Patty, forgive me. I'm sorry. Patty's production company of working with me to get this documentary together, get the story out.
Yep.
Because it's an interesting, great American love story. That's what I call it.
And it's a love story and an American story.
It's an American story.
You don't get more American than this. You just don't.
Yeah. And I've saved, to the viewing audience, I've saved all the love letters. I've got pictures out the yin yang. And so I'm very proud of that.
Yeah.
And again, it is separate from Miles. I mean,
I was going to bring this up. This is without talking about Miles Davis. I mean, we're talking about the most legendary jazz trumpeter ever.
Right.
So, and this is without bringing him into the picture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, and it's no diss, obviously, to his legacy.
Absolutely not.
But this, this is a story about two people who clearly refused to accept these hurdles, yet they dealt with what was handed to them in light of Plessy v. Ferguson.
Yep.
See,
Yeah.
in light of Plessy v. they played by the rules, and still, even though the rules were not fair, but
Right.
with unfair rules, they were still able to excel like this.
That's what.
I'm not saying this is the only story.
Right.
I'm not saying this is the only story,
Yeah.
but this is one that you just don't hear about. And the great thing
You
is
don't.
that it's documented in Ebony, in the Ebony archives, which I
Right.
believe is now in the Smithsonian.
Wow.
They sold everything when Ebony went down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the complete thing. And before my father, and this is getting back to our area here in the Delaware Valley, before my father got accepted or went into the dental program at Northwestern, after his undergrad was from Arkansas Baptist College in 1919. Okay, his bachelor's. Okay,
Wow.
all right. And you think about if Plessy v. Ferguson was 1896,
Right. This is new.
1919, yeah,
It's
yeah,
pretty
I mean,
new.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, right. So he
wow.
gets his bachelor's degree, which is an HBCU, historically
Right.
black college. After he leaves there, he comes and does his pre-medical requirements at Lincoln University, PA, Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, and
Wow.
Lincoln University, where Thurgood Marshall went.
Yeah.
And this, I believe, was in probably 1920 and 1921. Could have been a little bit later because because he started med school, I think, in 21. So
Okay.
he had to have done the Lincoln University in maybe 1920. Okay.
Yeah.
So even my father had a Philadelphia connection.
Right.
You know what I mean? Meaning Delaware Valley connection, you know.
The
So,
constitution of him is incredible.
right.
I can't imagine what he went through.
Yeah. I mean, and then go to Northwestern. And
Yeah.
then after he does that, he has his own dental practice and he gets these distinguished service awards from Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman. He got two from Roosevelt, one from Harry Truman during World War II, because in St. Louis, because you still had segregation in
Right.
the military,
Yeah.
he was the dentist for free that would do the dental reports of all the black uh, enlistees
Right.
in the metropolitan St. Louis area into the Army for the war. I got him right here. I got
Yeah.
it right over there.
That's it's just insane
Yeah,
to even think of
yeah,
the accomplishments and the sacrifice and pain that he
yeah,
probably went through,
yeah,
and it never stopped him.
yeah. And the dedication, he's still an
Yeah.
American. See, that's the whole thing. Even in light of all that, I'm still an American. I'm still going to help the war effort.
Yep. Yep.
Dig what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So,
It's insane. It's really a testament, and that's why I felt really strongly about telling that story.
yeah,
Because
man.
that's
Well,
a story you don't hear.
yeah, thank you. Thank
Yep.
you, brother.
That's the
Thank
story you don't hear.
you. Thank
And
you.
that's a story that really needs to be told.
Yeah, well, we're going to,
Yeah.
we'll do it. We'll do it.
Yep.
And I thank you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Phenomenal stuff, Joe.
Yeah. Well, no, man, you're my brother.
Yep.
When you asked
Absolutely.
me, I was honored. I'm humbled to have my face back in the Delaware Valley, although this is all over the world. And I was born in Illinois and grew up in Illinois, but I became a man in Philadelphia. I tell people that all the time.
Wow.
You
That's
know,
awesome.
you know. People say, yeah, Philadelphia, make you a man. It could be a dead one. No, I'm just playing.
That's the
No.
truth, though.
Yeah, it's the truth, though. But I'm very thankful and very thankful for your friendship over the years, and so
right back at you. I
yeah,
mean,
man.
it's just been incredible.
But we
And
gonna
working
make
with
this
you.
other thing. We gonna make this other thing happen, baby.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Working with you was absolute joy.
yeah,
Just an incredible talent. And your whole, everything that you've done is just a testament to hard work, never giving up. It's the old cliches. It's
yeah,
the old cliches over and over again, but
yeah.
it's true. If you don't give up, you will succeed.
Yeah,
It's that
yeah.
simple.
It just, you remember in 1989 that movie? It was kind of like a documentary movie on Quincy Jones. It was called "Listen Up: The
Yep.
Lives of Quincy Jones."
I had that whole soundtrack.
Yeah, right. We
Yeah.
both do, right?
Yep.
So I went to see that movie, right? It was in either 89 or 91. It could have been 91.
Yeah.
But the liner on it said, and I'm paraphrasing here, when they say I can't do it, I go, oh, really? With a question mark. That was Quincy. You see it on the
Yeah.
stuff. You can't do that. He goes,
Yep.
oh, really? And so that also was inspiring for me
Yeah.
because it's good to see somebody revered as Quincy Jones thinking the way you think as a young guy.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the way you have to be.
Yeah, man.
If that could be taught to young people, man.
Yeah, well, some of them get it, some of them don't, but I'll tell you, that's the real deal.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, it took me 6 years to get admitted to law school. I took the LSAT 12 times. Then, after I graduated law school and got here on the way, when I was in Dallas, I took the bar once, didn't make it. So then I get here to Florida. I'm still working and trying to study for the bar. I took the bar 4 times in a row. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last time was good, but that last time, I thought I'd only passed half. I was happy only to pass half. Like, I was like, oh, I only got to take another half to try it again, right? Because I scored, up on this side, didn't score on this side.
Right.
But I scored so high on the hot side that I scored enough that it carried over
Yeah.
to this part. So the two together, because you had to have like a 138 or something.
All right.
And I had like a 139 combined. Right? It's like the tush
Doesn't matter.
push. Yeah, it don't matter.
Exactly. Does not matter.
It's like
you're over
it
it being licensed.
Right. Period.
That's it.
And I was on the air here when I saw it, and I was hyperventilating the rest of the day. I mean, I just because people were following this thing. Is he going
Right.
to pass? Whatever.
Yeah.
I talked about it, and man, right. I go on the intercom in the radio station. I was like, yeah, boom, boom. Got good news, I passed half the bar, so I don't have to take the other half. So the sales manager comes in. She goes, oh, really? Her name was Michelle. She's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, shit. All I got to do is study the other half. She goes, well, let me see. So I show her, and I show the columns.
Right.
Now, I'm bugging, right? She looks at a third column that for whatever reason, I didn't notice it. She goes, well, what's that column with the other P? Because it was F, P, and P. She goes, what's the third column with the P? I was like,
That's
third
the
column with
best.
the P. I was like, oh, my God. I said, I passed it. She goes, really? Come here, give me a hug. We're in there. I'm on the air, I'm like, oh, my God. Okay,
That was a long time coming, man.
boy, it was in September. That was in September of 2000, right?
Wow.
The next month, I went to, I think it was like a Billboard convention or something,
Right.
Billboard, but it was in New York, right?
Right.
It was at some hotel in New York. And, I mentioned Craig Davis's name,
Oh yeah.
but this is
Love
back
Craig.
when, Alan Lott, all our crew
Oh,
was still
I
living,
love
right?
those guys, man.
Yo, Joe,
Troy Sheldon.
Joe, Joe. I come to the hotel, right? The one hotel is where the event is. I'm at the hotel across the street, right? Because I couldn't get in there, right? But everybody's at the bar. I come in, yo, they found out I had passed the bar,
Oh man.
bruh. I don't even know how I got back to the room. Okay. And I had on a Ruckus t-shirt, a Ruckus sweatshirt and hoodie because it was kind of chilly. And I'm not to tell too much information, but it took me a little while to get back to the room. Dog, it was on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, they set it off, right?
Yeah.
So the next day is when the award ceremony is, right? Joe, I ain't hung over. I'm hung under. Okay, right? And I just remember I was sitting there and damn, I can't remember what label, Michelle, but it's this lady. I was sitting with this record promoter, Michelle. And she said, yeah, I said, Michelle, she goes, here. She goes, I got some ibuprofen or whatever. She gave,
Yeah.
and I drank, and that got me through. But oh man, but and then later on that year, I go to Australia for the Olympics. Coca-Cola sends me with this station down here. So 2000
Wow.
was just a great year.
Yeah.
It was
Yep.
a great year.
And then you just recently got inducted into the
Oh
Broadcasters
yeah,
Hall of Fame, correct?
yeah. The National Black Radio Hall of Fame. That was this time last year.
Yeah.
And then in November of 2023, I got inducted into the National Public Radio Hall of Fame for Central Illinois, the WGLT. So I'm very proud of that because you got two different formats.
Yeah.
You know,
Everything, like I said when we talked about way from the beginning about the success,
yeah.
successes, everything that you've done, you got to be proud of this. I mean, you should be
I'm
proud of it.
thankful. I'm thankful, Joe.
And
I
proud.
really, yeah, I'm proud and thankful.
I'm proud. I'm
Yeah,
proud to
man,
know you.
thank you.
Really. I mean,
Thank
everything that you've set out to do, you've done it. And then to be rewarded in inductions and Hall of Fames and things. That's, I mean,
That's pretty good. Yeah, I'm thankful.
it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, I hope one day I could get in the Philadelphia Radio Hall of Fame with Patty now.
Yeah, with the walk,
because
the alliance.
Yeah. Because I'm gonna tell you, if they do it,
Well, you should.
me, you, Cerami, me, you, and Cerami, Frank Cerami, our friend Frank Cerami.
That's
We're
right.
gonna go to Dante and Luigi's, baby.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We gonna kick it there because I've been there. I know how good that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, my friend owns that.
yeah. Well, hey,
Yep.
I love them.
Yep.
Okay. So,
Unbelievable.
but yeah, man. So let me.
Yeah, I
I'm
appreciate the time, Joe.
Yeah, brother.
It's
So
been great.
yeah, and I'll I'll send you something in the email so you could dress up this thing
Yep,
the way you want.
absolutely.
I'll get you
Yep.
some more.
Beautiful.
All right. Love
Thank you,
brother.
man. Appreciate it. Love it, bro.
All right. Love you.
Bye-bye.
All right.